variety of theatrical works. Graduating drama students have the honour of representing Quebec at an annual international theatre festival abroad. In the same spirit, the school, a member of the Art Drala network, also hosts the AQEFT International Festival of Francophone Theatre. A major celebration will be held on May 4th to mark the school's 50th anniversary. I salute Jonathan Bradley, the school principal, and hope he never finds my disciplinary file. The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Engaged and energetic are the words that best describe Louise Bourgault. As head of the Sherbrooke Chamber of Commerce and Industry for 18 years, when you saw her at a professional event, you never got the feeling she was only there because she had to be. Her obvious enjoyment of her work spoke volumes about the importance she placed on her mission, which was Sherbrooke's economic development. We worked together on various projects, and she was always so professional and open to suggestions. I remember in particular her involvement in the Economic Recovery Forum we organized together after the early months of the pandemic. Last December, she stepped down to enjoy a well-deserved retirement. I wish her every success in her personal endeavors and thank her on behalf of the people of Sherbrooke for her dedication to Sherbrooke's economic development.
The Honourable Member from Hastings Lennox Naddington.
Mr. Speaker, the following quote is tragic. These words should never be spoken, yet far too often this sentiment is shared. I'm not angry with my sweet boy. I'm not angry with those who caused him extra suffering. I'm saddened for those people because they don't understand mental illness, and I hope they become aware. I'm heartbroken and frustrated we don't have the resources for people suffering mental illness and for those people watching loved ones suffer. I struggle daily with the fact that my best was not good enough. I was unable to keep my son alive. Faced with the worst situation a mother could imagine, Lori decided to honor the memory of her son, Mark, by raising awareness of the terrible disease that took her son. Mental illness, mental health, and suicide.
All right, we just got statements for a little bit, and
this hits home
probably for like another 10
all
minutes
of us,
max,
often
and then it's going to get right into it.
It is incumbent on each and every one of us elected to this place to give the tools necessary to our healthcare providers to combat mental illness in all of its forms.
The Honourable Member from Ottawa Centre.
Speaker, I rise today to celebrate the remarkable 90-year journey of the Jewish Federation of Ottawa. The roots of the Federation trace back to 1934 amidst a backdrop of rising anti-Semitism and economic adversity caused by the Great Depression. From the outside, the congregations of Agudat Hashem, Adad Jeshurun, Congregation Megziki Hadas, and B'nai Jacob recognize the power of unity, understanding that they are indeed stronger together. Through the leadership of visionaries like Rabbi A.H. Friedman, Casper Kaplan, Archibald Jacob Freeman, Thomas Schwartz, Norman Zagerman, and Rabbi Reuven Bulka, the Federation has made an incredible mark on our Ottawa community. Since 2005, the Federation has raised over $107 million for the Jewish community. It has distributed thousands of Jewish books for free in Ottawa, and there's much more. The history of the Jewish Federation of Ottawa is a testament to the strength and resilience of the Jewish community in the face of adversity. In times of strain like now, the Federation continues to lead the fight against prejudice, discrimination, and anti-Semitism. Congratulations to the Jewish Federation of Ottawa for their community building and service.
I'd like to remind all members to please keep their declarations to the 1-minute time frame. Very worthy declarations which are being made, but it's out of respect for all members. The Honourable Member from Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, April marks World Malaria Month. Malaria continues to ravage the world, and unfortunately our country is not spared. Indeed, malaria still claims nearly 500 Canadian lives each year. When tragedy strikes, some individuals transform hardship into advocacy, and this is true of Olugu Ukpai of Halifax, who is on a mission to end malaria after losing his 16-month-old daughter, Miss Goodness Olugu Ukpai, to the disease. Olugu plays a pivotal role in raising awareness about malaria using drumming demonstrations to engage the public on this pressing issue. He and his family, Goodness's siblings, are famous at home as the uplifting Halifax Multicultural Drummers, and they led the commemoration of World Malaria Day on April 16th in Halifax, featuring special guests and drummers from various parts of the African continent. Artists and community members came together to support the cause and engage Halifax in battling this disease. Awareness of malaria is increasing, and we must maintain momentum. I want to extend my gratitude to Olugu Ukpai for his unwavering dedication.
The honourable member from Portage-Lisgar.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, it has never been more expensive to eat, heat, or put a roof over your head. This Prime Minister pretends everything is fine, but it isn't. He is in complete denial. Look at the cost of groceries. Look at the cost of homes. No one can afford to live anymore. His record deficits have driven interest rates sky high, and the dream of home ownership is simply dead. Canadians are struggling to stay afloat. And what does this Prime Minister offer? He throws them an anvil by raising the carbon tax a whopping 23%. This has increased the price of gas, of groceries, and of everything else. In Canada, millions of people are using food banks. Mr. Speaker, this isn't the country that I grew up in. It's hardly even recognizable. It's clear that this Prime Minister is simply not worth the cost. It wasn't this way before this Prime Minister, and it won't be this way after, because Conservatives will bring home lower prices by axing the tax and fixing the budget.
It's going to take so many years to clean up this mess.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know when they call for
liberals like
emergency
her
medical
created.
assistance, there is a team of compassionate and competent paramedics nearby to help. Canadians expect robust and responsive health care, and paramedics are an integral part of our emergency response teams. Today, we are honored to welcome a delegation of paramedics from the Paramedic Association of Canada to Parliament Hill to discuss key priorities in ensuring that paramedics are recognized for that essential care they provide. Representing nearly 30,000 paramedics across Canada who have answered over 3 million calls for service, the Paramedic Association of Canada advocates for the advancement of paramedicine to ensure that these services are accessible, responsive, proactive, and safe. Paramedics are key to keeping our communities safe. Our government looks forward to our continued work with the Paramedic Association of Canada to serve Canadians and deliver the first response services they deserve. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of reckless spending, the only thing this Prime Minister and his NDP Liberal government have succeeded at is making life worse for Canadians. With families across the country struggling to make ends meet, the Prime Minister continues to spend more borrowed money than ever before.
Yeah, it's
Gas
crazy.
prices have increased dramatically, with some areas of the country seeing the highest prices in years due to the carbon tax, which adds nearly 20 cents a litre. Farmers, the very people who feed Canada and the world, are having to pay thousands of dollars more each year to run their operations because of the carbon tax, which increased to 23% earlier this month and will only continue to go up. Given his inflationary spending that drives up the cost of everything and he keeps interest rates high, it is no wonder that Canadians are poorer. He needs to axe the tax on farmers and food by passing Bill C-234 in its original form. Canadians need relief, and sadly they won't get it from this Prime Minister who simply isn't worth the cost.
The honourable member from Caribou Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, the leading cause of death for children in British Columbia is overdose. Overdose accounts for more deaths in BC than homicides, suicides, accidents, and natural disease combined. Since 2016, over 42,000 Canadians have tragically lost their lives due to drug overdose. After 9 years, this NDP Liberal government's extremist drug policies have literally turned our neighborhoods into war zones, and statistics have tripled. Yet, unbelievably, they want to go even further and make cocaine, meth, heroin, crack, and fentanyl legal. Hard drugs are being used in playgrounds, parks, coffee shops, and even hospitals. David Eby's NDP have finally admitted that this Prime Minister's extremist drug policies have utterly failed, leaving ruined lives and grieving families in its wake. This Prime Minister must end his failed drug experiment today, or better yet, step aside and let a common sense Conservative government fund treatment and recovery to bring our loved ones home.
The honourable member for Alfred Pellan. Mr. Speaker,
House is
on
fill
this
it up.
last day of Cancer Awareness Month, I'd like to highlight not only my personal history, but also the history of thousands of people from Laval. Since February 2013, I've been grateful to be in remission, but cancer continues to have an impact on lives, including my sister Nina's, who's currently undergoing treatment. The community of Laval is resilient and full of courage and determination. Every year, families, friends, and neighbors join in the fight against this devastating disease.
Get to question period
Mr.
already.
Speaker, in the battle against cancer, every story is a poignant reminder of our common struggle. Every minute counts, and every act has an impact. Hope for a cure is a life buoy we all cling to. Let's get involved with conviction so our future can be cancer-free.
Nina, I love you, sis.
Bravo.
No, they're not, but that was a Liberal.
James Bay.
The homelessness crisis in Northern Ontario has become a social disaster. Municipalities, agencies, healthcare systems are stretched to the breaking point. And yet this Liberal government is telling frontline agencies to get ready for massive cuts. The Reaching Home program is an essential lifeline for northern communities, and yet the government is telling Cochrane District, which includes Timmins, to get ready for a 52% cut in funding. Sault Ste. Marie is facing 60% cuts, while Sudbury and Nipissing will get whacked with a 70% cut. This will devastate our region and leave vulnerable people at serious risk. In Budget 2024, the Liberals bragged about how much money they will invest in housing in the homeless.
Talks
nice
that
won't
Dominic
keep people
LeBlanc
safe.
may
In
take
Northern
his
Ontario,
spot.
they're ignoring calls
If you
from
Google it,
municipalities for clarity.
like
this
out there
isn't
right
good
now.
enough. So people in the North are asking their Liberal MPs a simple question. Will they fight to reverse the cuts
And then there's
ensure
Mark
that more
Carney as
funding
well.
is brought to the table to fight the nightmare of homelessness in Northern Ontario?
The honourable member for Rivière-des-Mille.
Hey, there's Pierre. We got Pierre in here finally.
Mr. Speaker,
He even beat
I'd like
Trudeau.
to
Trudeau's not even
acknowledge
in here yet.
the remarkable contribution of one of my predecessors today, the member for Rivière-des-Mille, block member, the Honourable Gilles A. Perron. When I decided to run, Gilles told me, look, if you don't wear out a pair of shoes in the campaign, you don't deserve to be elected. And on the night of your victory, make the most of it, because the next day you're right back on the campaign trail. For over 11 years, Gilles wore out his shoes meeting his constituents. His greatest political contribution was that thanks to him, PTSD has finally been recognized among veterans. We're talking about a historic moment for the people who defended our democracy. As you draw your last breath, I promise to honor your political legacy, Gilles, in the service of the invisible wounded. For Rivière-des-Mille, I will still wear out my shoes, thinking of you. Gilles, we love you.
The honourable member from Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
After 9 years, the NDP Liberal government is not worth the drugs, disorder, death, and destruction. In BC, more people are dying as taxpayer-funded deadly drugs flood the streets. Kids' playgrounds are littered with needles and crack pipes, and it is impossible for law enforcement to do their job and keep communities safe. A year after the Prime Minister made crack, heroin, fentanyl, meth, and other drugs legal in BC, a record 2,500 British Columbians lost their lives to addiction. Last year, the former Minister of Addictions assured us they would end this deadly experiment if public health and safety indicators were not met. Both are failing. And BC's NDP Premier is now pleading with the Prime Minister to rescue them from this failed policy. Yet the Minister of Addiction refuses immediate action. Now the Prime Minister wants to expand his failed policy of deadly drugs to Canada's largest city, Toronto, despite opposition from the Premier. How many more Canadians must die before the NDP Liberals will finally put an end to this failed drug legalization policy?
The honourable member from Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, Budget 2024 promises to deliver a vision for
Turn off
Canada
her
that
mic.
is fairer and more affordable for every generation.
This chick is the worst.
In my riding of Mississauga, Erin Mills, residents, especially younger generations, deserve a fair chance at purchasing their own home. That's why Budget 2024 proposes an ambitious plan to invest into more affordable housing initiatives to unlock 3.87 million more homes by 2031 for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2024 is also investing $1 billion into the National School Food Program to the benefit of over 400,000 Canadian children, so that no child in this country goes to school hungry. As we know, a full belly leads to sharper minds. There are so many aspects of Budget 2024 that work towards strengthening
Okay, come on, is
our
your time
middle
not up
class,
yet?
and I encourage all members in this House to support this budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, here we go. Let's go.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. After 9 years, this Prime Minister is not worth the crime or the drugs. This government's radical, extreme drug policies, which are supported by the Bloc Québécois, have tripled overdose deaths. In the Journal de Montréal today, we can read there are used needles on the floor, there are terrible scenes to be witnessed, there are supervised consumption sites, some of which are a couple steps away from schools in Montreal. When will the Prime Minister reverse his radical policies which are causing deaths? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the opioid crisis is terrible. It's occurring across the country. But what we need to fix this is not more conservative ideology. We need solutions based on compassion, healthcare, and science. We need evidence-based solutions. Now we will continue to work together with provinces and with communities to address this public health crisis. We will do so in a thorough and compassionate manner. That is what Canadians expect. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Minister is not worth the drugs and death. His extreme and radical drug policy has increased overdose deaths in British Columbia by 380%. In the year following his decriminalization of crack, heroin, and other hard drugs in hospitals, transit buses, coffee shops, and parks where children play, there has been a record-smashing 2,500 deaths. Will the Prime Minister accept the BC NDP's demand to recriminalize those drugs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I just answered that question. What hasn't been answered by the Leader of the Opposition is why he chooses to continue to court extreme right nationalist groups like the
come
He
on.
refuses to denounce these extremists who don't believe Canadians should coexist with each other. Instead, they call for war and tell people to follow their instincts accordingly. The Leader of the Conservative Party is actively courting the support of groups with white nationalist views. It is disturbing, and he needs to stand up and apologize now.
But you align yourself with China.
Colleagues, so soon in question period, it is important that we try to control ourselves. I'll ask the honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton, please, to allow members to ask the questions and members to respond. The honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I always condemn extremism and racism, including from the guy who spent the first half of his adult life as a practicing racist, dressing up in hideous racist costumes so many times.
Yeah, let's go. You see him smirking. You see him sitting there smirking.
The honourable, the honourable member, Leader of the Opposition, knows that to make an accusation directly at
What?
the character of a single person is not.
Whoa. Greg, what are you doing?
To control themselves.
Greg, what are you doing, man? Greg, come on, bro. No, what are you doing? What are you doing, dude? You take that seat and you...
I'll ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to rephrase this question and to start from the top.
No. He doesn't have to rephrase shit.
Mr. Speaker, I will also condemn the extremism of a Prime Minister who gives hundreds of thousands of dollars of anti-racism money to a Jew hater who has proposed shooting Jews in the head. I condemn a Prime Minister who allows the IRGC, which murdered 55 Canadians, to remain legal. And I condemn a Prime Minister who allows open use of crack, heroin, meth, and weapons in hospital rooms that threaten nurses and on school buses next to children. Will the Prime Minister reverse his extremist policies? And
yeah, here. You better interrupt Trudeau, Greg.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the leader opposite is showing us exactly what shameful, spineless leadership looks like.
Whoa. He's got it. Come on, Greg, interrupt him. Retract that statement. Make him retract the statement or rephrase it. Come on. Yeah, Greg, get it together, dude. Yeah, I know. Just Trudeau put him here after destroying the reputation of the last one. The last one was fine. I liked Anthony Rota.
I'm going to ask the Honourable Member from Lethbridge if she has problems with the chair, that she should challenge the chair in a way. But as she knows, as the Honourable Member from Lethbridge knows, that by challenging the chair is against the rules of this House. I'll ask the Honourable Member to please ask her to withdraw her remarks.
Ask Trudeau to rephrase his shit. What are you talking about?
The chair is acting in a disgraceful manner.
I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
Will you?
I agree with her. Thank you, honey. You're the only one that's saying it out in the mic. Everybody else is thinking it. They're going to confer.
Ms. Harder, I have to name you for disregarding the authority of the chair. Pursuant to authority granted to me by Standing Order 11, I order you to withdraw from the House and from any participation by video conference for the remainder of this day's sitting.
Brutal, Greg. Brutal.
Now back to the issue at hand. Mrs. Thomas, my apologies.
You didn't even get her name right.
Now back to the original point. I'm going to ask the Prime Minister to please, as I'd ask the Leader of the Opposition, to start from again and to make sure that he does, to start his question, to reframe it in a way that does not call into the character of an individual member of Parliament. The Honourable Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the leader opposite is showing us once again what he will do to try and earn votes through personal attacks. He shakes the hands of a leader of a white nationalist group, then goes to actively court the support of the group's members and thinks he can get away with it. This is a group that advocates for violence against 2S LGBTQI+ Canadians, against Hindus and Sikhs, against Muslims.
Greg, are you not going to
and
stop
Jews.
him?
Diagolong stands against everything we stand for as Canadians, and yet he will not denounce them or what they stand for. That is shameful, Mr. Speaker.
Greg, are you going to show some goddamn leadership in this House as the chair? What are you doing? This is disgraceful.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that, like everything else he says, is false. He uses fear and falsehood and this latest distraction because he doesn't want to face the fact that he has become so extreme and radical that even the BC NDP is distancing themselves from his decriminalization of crack, heroin, meth, and other hard drugs in hospital rooms causing nurses to have to stop breastfeeding their babies for fear that their contaminated air might end up in the breast milk of the baby. Why won't he ban these drugs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
He still won't condemn these groups. Any leader that needs the support of a far-right white nationalist group to fundraise and get closer to power does not deserve elected office. This is this is a 19-year career politician who knows exactly what he's doing and thinks he can get away with it. It was a choice to pander to white nationalists, not an accident.
Greg, are you going to interrupt him and ask him to rephrase his...
to not condemn them and condemn everything they stand for in his quest for votes.
This is brutal.
I'm going to ask the honourable member for the second time from St. Albert, Edmonton, to please withhold his comments until he has the floor. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it is a choice for him to implement extremist policies that have taken the lives of 2,500 British Columbians every single year. Since the NDP has asked him to reverse course on his and formerly their radical policy, 22 British Columbians have died of drug overdoses. But he continues to allow those drugs to kill the people in our hospitals and on our public transit. When will we put an end to this wacko policy by this wacko Prime Minister?
No.
Great question.
No.
Great question. What do you mean, no, Greg? What do you mean, no, Greg?
That is not there are a couple of things which are going on here today which is not acceptable.
You.
And I ask all members, please, to keep themselves, to control themselves. I'm going to ask two things. One, I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to withdraw that term, which is not considered parliamentary.
Mr. Speaker, I replace wacko with extremist. He is an
The honourable member to please. I'm going to ask the Leader of the Opposition once again to just withdraw that comment, please. And I'll invite the honourable member.
He did.
I'm going
He's calling the Leader of the Opposition a white supremacist. And you don't ask Trudeau.
Withdraw that comment.
He did.
I'll replace it with radical leftist policy.
I am not asking to replace. I'm asking the honourable member to just simply withdraw.
Dude, why are you so controlling?
Mr. Speaker, I replace the word wacko with extremist.
You can't kick him out for that. You can't kick him out for that. Go confer. Go confer. You can't kick him out for that. He withdrew and then he changed his statement. You can't kick him out for that. If you kick him out, I swear to God. See, even Andrew Scheer's looking at Pierre going, no, it's okay. You're fine. This is crazy. Trudeau's sitting over there calling Pierre a white nationalist. You don't ask him to withdraw anything.
I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition one last time to please withdraw that comment and simply withdraw that comment.
I simply withdraw and replace with the aforementioned adjective.
Mr. Poilievre, I have to name you for disregarding the authority of the chair. Pursuant to the authority granted to me by
No way he's kicking Pierre out. No way he's kicking Pierre out. No way he's kicking Pierre out. What a joke. Yo, we got to get this guy out. We got to get this guy out. What a joke. What a joke. What a joke. No way. He just ejected Pierre out of the fucking House of Commons. This is ridiculous. He said he withdrew. What, you didn't like the way he said it? Because he added 2 extra words after? You wanted him to just say, I withdraw? He's allowed to say what he wants when he withdraws. This is crazy. This is crazy. He can't say wacko, but Trudeau can say white supremacist? How does that make any sense? This is crazy. See, look, everyone in the House on Conservative side just left. Because if you're going to kick Pierre out, you might as well kick us all out. That's what they're saying. And they all left with him. I love it.
The second matter, which I was going to bring up,
I love it. They all left with him.
I was hearing some catcalling from the far end of the House. I wasn't able to identify the person, but I'll ask all members to carry themselves.
I love it. They all left
in a way
just with
that
him.
is dignified for this House. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition wants to talk about extremism. Well, a week ago, he visited a Diagolon encampment. Diagolon...
And you're going to just let him sit there and continue talking about...
get the same protections as everyone else, and they are charter-protected rights. Just yesterday, a week after the Conservative leader...
Yeah, Garnett. Give it to him, Garnett. I love how Garnett's yelling at him. I love it.
I'll ask the honourable member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands,
no, leave Garnett Genius
and
alone.
Rideau Lakes to please, withdraw, to please.
Oh, what, you going to kick him out too?
Only take the microphone when he is afforded the opportunity to ask a question. I'll ask the Right Honourable Prime Minister to continue. I'm going to ask the Right Honourable Prime Minister to finish his question. He has 15 seconds left on the clock.
Mr. Speaker, the association of the Leader of the Opposition with Diagolon and their disdain for charter protection.
Come on, why are you letting him say he's a white supremacist, dude? How can you not stop him? Tell him to withdraw. And then kick him out if he doesn't withdraw.
The Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the rights of Canadians and our justice system. That's
Did you not hear what he said? He just said white supremacist. How can you not stop him and ask him to withdraw? Greg, come on, Greg.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr.
That's
Speaker,
brutal.
I would like to congratulate you on your common sense today.
Fuck off, Block.
If you would like more questions, well, we have many that we could ask. Mr. Speaker, the weapons buyback program, Phoenix pay system, emitting visas, GC strategies, McKinsey, the government's management is really chaotic. The government should not be interfering with Quebec's jurisdiction. They should simply limit themselves to issuing unconditional transfers. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as Prime Minister, it is my responsibility to take care of all Canadians everywhere in Canada. I am the member for Papineau and I'm a proud Quebecer. So I will, of course, take care of Quebecers too. This is why we are working hand in hand with provinces from coast to coast to deliver services, care, and support that Canadians need in these difficult times. We will continue to be here to invest in communities, to invest in Canadians, and to invest in their futures. We will do so by working with provinces and municipalities. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Hand in hand with provinces, eh? Now, the Conservatives have been making statements that put them on par with Pinocchio, but now they're voting with the Liberals. The Conservatives now also want to interfere with provincial jurisdiction. All premiers unanimously made a request. But against all of those premiers, the Liberals and the Conservatives have voted down a motion calling for respect of provincial jurisdiction. So if the Liberals and Conservatives really care about Quebec, then I welcome them to read our policies. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc's policies seek to pick fights between Quebec and Ottawa. On this side of the House, we're investing in Quebecers' futures. We're investing in families, seniors. We're investing in dental care. In fact, as of tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, seniors in Quebec and elsewhere in Canada will have advantages. We're investing to increase daycare spots. We're investing in green technology and a more prosperous future for all. We're here to work together, not to fight, and we will continue on that track. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie.
See, look, all the Conservatives left, and I love it.
Mr. Speaker,
I love how they all stood by their leader.
I'm glad that those remaining are adults.
That shows true solidarity.
The adults are still here in the room.
No, the kids are still in the room.
25% of Quebecers
and you guys won't be in the room much longer. You guys are gone next year.
That's a
all of
staggering
you
number.
guys.
That's 2 million people.
All those seats are going to be Conservative.
25% of Quebecers are living on less than the minimum income required to live a reasonably decent life. They're too squeezed to afford the goods and services they need. Meanwhile, the Liberals are giving gifts to big oil. Everything costs more. Housing has become insanely expensive. Housing is a single biggest expense for families. So when are the Liberals going to build housing that Quebecers can afford? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, that's exactly why, in our recent budget, we have prioritized creating equal opportunities for all generations. A huge chunk of the investments in Budget 2024 are investments in housing, affordable housing. We wish to ensure that young people, Millennials and Generation Z, will have a future in which they can buy a home, in which they can pay rent, and pay rent such that their credit rating will increase so that they can eventually start paying a mortgage. We're investing more than anyone before us.
Yes, Speaker, Canadians deserve to retire with dignity, and they can with the world-renowned Canada Pension Plan. But Danielle Smith is trying
the only
to
people
pull
that are
Alberta
left
out of the CPP,
are the ones that are voting with each other.
The Conservative leader has spent his entire career attacking workers' pensions while he benefits from a public pension himself. New Democrats are fighting back. Today I tabled a bill that will protect the CPP from Conservatives and give Canadians and Albertans a say in the future of their CPP. Will the Liberals support my bill, or will they stand with the cut-and-gut Conservatives?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're pleased to see the NDP joining us in the fight to protect
of
the
course
Canada
you're
Pension
pleased to
Plan.
see the
Actually,
NDP
one of the very
joining
first things we did in government
Otherwise, you wouldn't
about
get anything
6 months
passed in the House.
was strengthen the Canada Pension Plan for future generations. We will continue to stand against Conservatives who, for decades, have been railing against the Canada Pension Plan, and indeed, the plan by Alberta to dismantle the Canada Pension Plan, to put at risk the pensions of millions of Albertan seniors, is absolutely irresponsible, and we will continue to stand in defense of the Canada Pension Plan and look forward to standing with all members in this House in doing just that.
Hear, hear.
Look, all the Conservatives are gone. So what are you going to do? You're just going to bounce questions from the NDP to the Liberals to the Bloc? They all vote the same anyway. There's no opposition to bounce back questions here. Just end question period, Greg. You literally blew question period up.
C'est une journée exceptionnelle.
Well, today is a very unique day. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly.
Yeah, today's a unique day because you
The
blew
Prime
up the
Minister
House.
has left. He's no longer with us here on this Tuesday. Now, the Prime Minister said that he's working hand in hand with provinces. He insisted that he wants to ensure that everyone receives good services from the Government of Canada and that he wants that for all Canadians. Well, there are some services which are under provincial jurisdiction. So am I right in understanding that the Prime Minister feels that when provinces deliver services, they are lower quality than when Ottawa delivers them? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, I'm worried for my Bloc Québécois friends. I hardly recognize them anymore. They have always said that housing is important. They always say that housing is important. The Conservatives vote against it, and then the Bloc votes against it. The Conservatives say to vote against climate change. The Bloc sometimes votes against too, but I'm worried. This sovereigntist party, they are following advice from the Conservatives, and so they're in fact losing their own sovereignty. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly.
Oh, there goes Trudeau.
Well, I understand that there's been less preparation, but yesterday, the Conservatives, the Liberals, and even the NDP, I say even because it's one and the same, they all voted down a Bloc Québécois amendment. The amendment accepted the budget. We're team players, but all we were calling for was respect for provincial jurisdiction. But all these federalists got together and voted against the Bloc Québécois. How does the minister feel about that? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc has failed Quebecers. They promised Quebecers that they would support housing, but they voted against housing. They said to Quebecers that they would support fighting climate change. They vote against it. We try to help young people. They vote with the Conservatives. They vote against what we're doing. So does the Bloc Québécois realize that they are, in fact, becoming the separatist wing of the Conservative Party? The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, good afternoon. Quebec has just announced $603 million to stop the decline of the French language. Most of the money will go towards French language training for temporary foreign workers. This is good news for the vitality of the French language, but this alone will not be enough. Why not? Because the majority of foreign workers are entirely under the jurisdiction of the federal government through the International Mobility Program. And the federal government has no language requirements. So, given that the Liberals have acknowledged the decline of the French language, they too must do their part. Will the government heed Quebec's request and add French language requirements for foreign workers under its jurisdiction? The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We, of course, support French language training. We invested $5.4 billion in Quebec since 2015 for French language training, and things are working well. The Bloc is often viewed as a party that picks fights, but I would like to highlight the contribution of the member across the way. He has supported the fact that family members of temporary residents can stay longer. The government of Quebec called for that, and we worked together with the Bloc Québécois to ensure that this would be possible.
Vancouver East.
Priority processing for the Lifeboat scheme for Hong Kongers has gone from 6 months to 21. Processing delays for their PR application means their work permit and study permit are going to expire. The medical coverage will end. Dependent children will no longer be able to access education. Hong Kongers will be sent back to face an escalation of arbitrary detentions and arrests because of the draconian Safeguarding National Security Bill. Will the Minister resume the 6-month priority processing average for Hong Kongers and automatically renew their work and study permit as they wait?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to stand with the people of Hong Kong. We will work on processing times. We continue to work with people who seek refuge in Canada, and will continue to do so. Thank you.
The Honourable Member from Timmins, James Bay.
For decades, people in James Bay have struggled to overcome systemically racist underfunding of health services. Every region deserves proper hospital services, and we're finally on the verge of having a proper hospital built in the Winnebago Health region. But now at the 11th hour, the Liberals have walked away. I mean, heck, even Doug Ford is bringing the province to the table. So will the minister explain why she made the health authority jump through so many hoops only to tell them that the Liberals had no intention of funding this badly needed project?
First of all, let me...
Just 1 minute. I'd like to just apologize to the member from Timmins James Bay. I might have reduced the time of his question. We got the timing wrong here on the clock. I just want to make sure if the honourable member can please start again and start his question from the top, just to make sure that he has his full question. The honourable member from Timmins James Bay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For decades, people in James Bay have struggled to overcome systemically racist underfunding of health services. Every region deserves a proper hospital, and we're finally on the verge of having a proper hospital built in the Winnebago Health region. But now at the 11th hour, the Liberals have walked away. I mean, heck, even Doug Ford is bringing the province to the table. So will the minister explain why she made the health authority jump through so many hoops only to tell them that the Liberals have no intention of funding this badly needed project?
The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
And let me reassure him that I spoke with Grand Chief Fiddler just last week about this very project. We're working with the province and with the region to make sure that everyone can access quality health care no matter where they live.
All right. We're going to...
From Kingston in the Islands.
Mr. Speaker, disinformation, extremism, and violent hate are on the rise around the world, including here at home. Standing up to far-right extremism is something that I know this government takes very seriously. But it is shameful that the Leader of the Opposition entertained and posed for photos with organizations our national security agencies call a far-right extreme group rooted in white nationalism that promote hate and violence. Can the government please tell this House how important it is that these far-right extreme groups be condemned and addressed for the real threat that they are?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for Diversity.
Mr. Speaker, while we're investing $273 million towards Canada's first ever action plan on combating hate in this budget, the Leader of the official opposition is encouraging hate as he cozies up to far-right white extremist supporters.
The Speaker has made rulings about this in terms of lending intentions to honourable members in this House.
But you didn't do it for Trudeau.
So I'll ask the honourable minister to, with about 24 seconds left on the clock, to please correct her statement in a way that is respectful of all members.
Mr. Speaker, as a government, we have been very deliberate about choices to be inclusive, while the Leader of the Opposition is making it a very deliberate choice in courting to far-right extremists. This is, Mr. Speaker, extremely reckless, it's dangerous, and he owes Canadians an apology, and he needs to denounce the closing up that he's doing with these groups.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Quebec will not reach its goals in French language training if there are more and more people arriving. We can't take in 54% of all asylum seekers of Canada. It's a matter of social justice for the people who arrive. More people to house and to educate and sometimes to feed. But it's also about integration in Quebec society, because we have a duty to provide these people with all the tools they need to succeed. Will the minister finally announce a fair breakdown of asylum seekers between Quebec and the provinces? The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Mr.
It's a question period full of Liberal, Bloc, NDP.
The Bloc
There's no opposition.
Is clear on what is happening.
They're
Quebec is doing more than its fair share, but 54% is an exaggerated number. If we look at all the humanitarian aspect, it's really 25%. Yes, Quebec is doing more. There needs to be collaboration with the Government of Canada, but we need to work together. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. We are ready to welcome people. We won't be able to fight the decline in the French language if the federal government is working in the opposite direction. We have 2/3 of temporary residents coming in. The federal government is not taking on its responsibility in French language training. Ottawa is responsible for the skyrocketing needs of French language training in Quebec, and it's doing nothing. The Liberals repeat over and over that more needs to be done to protect French. So why do they refuse to do more to protect French? The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. It's very clear, Mr. Speaker, we will be there for Quebec to do more to support French in Quebec. $54 billion is not nothing. It's what we're contributing, what we've contributed since 2015. But I could ask a question to the member opposite. Does he think we should bring in more asylum seekers from Haiti? Would he accept more in Quebec? The Honourable Member for Madawaska-Restigouche. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's in this more civilized parliamentary context that I announce that Budget 2024 presents a generational plan to build more housing for Canadians. We already know that those in the skilled trades will be the key to the success of building these millions of homes. Since the Canada's Building Unions Trade meeting, it's happening now in the National Capital Region. Can the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Official Languages tell us what our government is doing to ensure that Canada has the workforce it needs to get the job done throughout the country? The Honourable Member of Employment and Workforce Development. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the Honourable Member for this question. Yesterday, I was at the Canada Buildings Trades Unions conference to discuss with people how we will address the housing crisis in Canada. Budget 2024 sets out money to fund training and apprenticeships for workers from coast to coast so they can build homes for the next decades. Mr. Speaker, the skilled trades will drive this effort. We will guarantee they have everything they need to get the job done. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot. Mr. Speaker, La Presse recently informed us of the existence of the obsolete or surplus goods program of the Border Services Agency. Basically, this program aims to give money to businesses that throw out their excess merchandise. We're talking about non-perishable merchandise. For example, let's say I have a jeans business. I import a new type and I end up with out-of-date, unsold jeans. I have two choices. If I throw them out in the garbage, Ottawa reimburses me for the customs charges. But if I donate them to a charity, I don't get a cent. What an invitation to waste. Who in Ottawa thinks that this is a good idea? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Okay, so this is Dominic LeBlanc.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague.
This is the potential person who would replace Trudeau on the Liberal Party.
I was not aware of a particular case. If he asks us if we're in favor of that type of waste, I think his opinion. The answer, of course, is no. I will be pleased to speak to the Border Services Agency to see if it's possible to find another solution. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot. Well, today, the level of questions has increased. I'm not sure about the answers. The Border Services Agency has reimbursed businesses over $20 million for throwing out their merchandise after making it unusable. At a time when food banks are serving more people than ever because times are tough, Ottawa is funding waste at the expense of social solidarity. It doesn't make sense.
Larry.
Will the Minister of Public Safety review this very bad program, which penalizes generosity and encourages waste?
They didn't bail, though. They got kicked out.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, we will absolutely review the facts that my honourable colleague has put forward because I, of course, share his concern in the face of this situation. I will be pleased to follow up with the agency, the Border Services Agency. I look forward to doing so.
The Honourable Member from Scarborough-Agincourt.
Mr. Speaker, April is Cancer Awareness Month. Though the month
All right, guys,
is ending,
just
the
another
need
few
for
minutes here, and we're going to call it.
Education continues.
Yeah, this was a
According
wild
to the
question
Canadian
period.
Cancer Society, 2 out of 5
Appreciate all you
Canadians
guys being
will be
here. Appreciate
diagnosed
everybody,
with cancer in their lifetime.
catching the highlights here.
In 2023 alone, an estimated 239,000 Canadians were newly
We'll be live for
diagnosed
question period
with
again
cancer.
tomorrow.
Can the Minister of Health update this House
Don't think Trudeau's
on what
going to be there for
our
question
government is doing
period.
to support Canadians impacted by cancer?
The Honourable Minister
this
of
was
Health.
wild.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the member for Scarborough-Agincourt for her continued advocacy She knows all too well, as do I and every member of this House, that so few of us get to make it through this life and not be touched by cancer, and that it is an imperative that we do all that we can. And I want to take a moment to recognize the Canadian Cancer Society, Breast Cancer Canada, and all those that work tirelessly to advocate. We put $1 billion over the last 5 years to work through breakthroughs in science and to improve how we prevent and treat cancer. We're taking critical action in prevention. Together, we can see an end to cancer. And I thank that for the time to speak, Mr. Speaker.
All right, guys.
The honourable member from Cowichan, Malahat,
After the next person here, we're going to call it.
Mr. Speaker, the
I feel
community
bad
of
because
Port
there's a lot of you
Renfrew in
guys
my
here,
riding
but,
relies on recreational fishing
I'm really
as the
curious what
major
Pierre's gonna have to
economic
say about
driver in
this,
the region, bringing in
about being
an
kicked
estimated $26 million per season. But the Liberals plan to end that important economic pathway and are failing to provide credible data to justify the fishing closures. This move will harm the local economy and devastate the local community, including the Pacheedaht First Nation. This is shameful. Why are the Liberals putting Port Renfrew's economy at risk with these ill-informed and punitive fishing closures?